All that I am, all that I have, I lay them down before you. Oh Lord, all my regrets, all my acclaim, the joy and the pain, I'm making them yours. And Lord, I offer my life to you, everything I've been through. Use it for your glory, Lord. I offer my days to you, lifting my praise to you as a pleasing sacrifice. Lord, I offer you my life. Things in the past, things yet unseen, wishes and dreams that are yet to come true. All of my hopes, all of my plans, my heart and my hands are lifted to you. Lord, I offer my life to you, everything I've been through. Use it for your glory, Lord. I offer my days to you, lifting my praise to you as a pleasing sacrifice. Lord, I offer you my life. What can we give that you have not given? And what do we have that is not already yours? All we possess are these lives we're living, and that's what we give to you, Lord. Lord, I offer my life to you, everything I've been through. Use it for your glory, Lord. I offer my days to you, lifting my praise to you as a pleasing sacrifice. Lord, I offer you my life. Lord, I offer my life to you, everything I've been through. Use it for your glory, Lord. I offer my days to you, lifting my praise to you as a pleasing sacrifice. Oh, as a sacrifice. Lord, I offer you my life.
Okay, let's just bow our heads and begin with a word of prayer. Dearest Father, I want to give you thanks for loving us as your children, for calling us your own, and for the many gifts and blessings that you have given us, including your Son, Jesus. So, Father, I ask that tonight you help us to come to you with open hearts and open hands, to receive your word and to receive your love for us again. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, it's now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Okay. Hello, everybody. Good to see all of you. Welcome to another night of prayer together and with Jesus. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, and those of you who have not met me before, my name is Iris, and I'm one of those helping out for the School of the Word on Wednesdays. Yeah, so today we have come to our final session on the two-part series on the parables of life, and we hope that everyone has enjoyed it so far. Picking up different nuggets of wisdom from Jesus every week, and perhaps being challenged in the way that we think and the way that we live our lives. As Christians, all of us are on this journey of waiting, of joyful anticipation for the daily encounter with God and to be united with Him forever at the end of our lives. And so the story in the passage today that we'll pray with is the one on the talents. And Jesus uses this story to teach us again how to live and how to prepare ourselves during this time of waiting, and to share with us the heart of His Father and what awaits us based on the choices that we make with what we are entrusted with in this life and all that we are. And so Jesus says, "It is like a man about to go abroad who summoned his servants and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents, another 2, and to the third servant 1, each in proportion to his ability." And as I was praying with this passage, what struck me first was the heart of the master, which in this case refers to God the Father. The Father's heart who is full of trust for those he loves. And this love impels him to give and share what is precious and valuable to him, to his children. And towards those he loves, he knows intimately. In the passage, it tells us that the master doesn't just haphazardly allocate and entrust his property to his servants. He knew each of them personally, their strengths, their capacities, and even their limitations. And he made sure that he gave them what they could manage. Because it would not have then been fair or loving to entrust someone with more than they can bear, because it would become more of a burden than a responsibility for them. And so in his loving care, the master carefully planned and apportioned his property to his servants according to their ability to care for what they have received. It's like one of those, best customized package specially made for each one. And out of his great trust, the master also gave his servants free will and full ownership over what they would do with the talents that they were entrusted with. Because without being physically present to oversee things, the master was taking a risk, as the servants could choose to be good stewards, or they could squander what they were given, make a mess of his estate, and maybe even land him in debt. But out of love, he still chose to trust them. And this is essentially the story of our lives as well. To each and every one of us, God has also entrusted us with different talents in different amounts and combinations. And these were not given to us by chance or haphazardly as well. Because each of us are fearfully and wonderfully made by God. As Psalm 139 says, You created our inmost self. Knit me together in my mother's womb. For so many marvels I thank you. A wonder I am, and all your works are wonders. Sometimes in the busyness of our lives, or perhaps in our dissatisfaction of who we are, what we have or what we don't have, we lose this sense of wonder of who we are as children of God. And we fail to appreciate the many blessings and talents that we have received from God. And these talents that we receive from Him are essentially everything that belongs to God, but are on loan to us while we are still here on this earth. Our lives, our health, our time, our different giftings and strengths, opportunities and experiences, people and relationships, the gift of Jesus and our faith. And each of us are given the choice each day, not just at important life stages and milestones, to decide how we would like to invest our talents, for whom and for what. And what will help us answer this question is to know what it is that we are ultimately accountable for at the end of our lives. When we come to the very end, the only question that we will need to answer and to give an account for is, how well have I loved? It's not so much how much we have earned or accumulated in terms of money or achievements, not our status in society, or even the mountaintop experiences we had the opportunity to experience on this earth. What truly matters at the end is love. because we are created by and for love. This is our deepest identity and mission, to grow more and more into the image and likeness of Jesus, who is love. And the fruit of our lives will be determined to the extent that we have allowed this love and the talents that we have received from God to multiply in our lives and in the lives of others. And when we build others up and we allow this love to multiply in our lives, when we share the reason for our hope, when we are able to sit with others in their times of darkness, when we offer mercy and forgiveness, and when we inspire others with our attitudes towards life, how we go about our daily affairs, how we treat those who are different, how we respond in times of trials and difficulties, and the extent that we are willing to become the last and to place ourselves in humble service to the needs of our brothers and sisters and to work together, rather than against each other. And all this not by our own strength and willpower, but through the example of Jesus and with his strength. And so the question that we can think about is, for whom and for what will I trade in my talents for? What are the returns or fruits that I'm looking for in my life? And if we go back to the story and we continue reading on, we were told that the first two servants went off promptly to trade their talents and both doubled their returns. However, the third one, who received 1 talent, went off and dug a hole in the ground to hide the money. And after a long time, the master returned and he went through the accounts with his servant. And so the first one came forward and said, "Sir, you have entrusted me with 5 talents. Here are 5 more that I've made." And the second one came forward and said the same thing. And so the master praised these 2 servants for being trustworthy in the small things and promised to trust them with even greater things. And they were invited to join him in his happiness. And then came the man with the 1 talent. He said, "Sir, I've heard that you are a hard man, reaping where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered. And so I was afraid. I went off and hid the talent in the ground. Here it is yours. You have it back." And so the master was super angry and he told the servant, "You know what? If that's the case, you should have just put my money in the bank. Then at least I would have gotten my money back with interest." And then the master ordered for the talent to be taken away from him and given to the man with 10 talents. And he said, "For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have more than enough. But anyone who has not will be deprived even of what he has." And so as I was praying, it struck me that the 2 servants who went off promptly to invest also had the same reciprocal trust in their master, because they too had to take the risk of the possibility of losing all their master's property, or even making the wrong choice when they decided that they would trade with the talents that did not belong to them. And so similarly for us, in our own journeys and our vocation of loving and growing in love, there will certainly be ups and downs. We will face uncertainties, challenges, hardships, persecutions, and even rejection. And some of us find ourselves in certain situations that make it even more challenging for us to bear witness to the gospel. For example, it might already not be very easy to speak the truth. But what more in situations where you find yourself being the only one, and you experience negative consequences for doing so, perhaps in the workplace? In such a situation, will we decide to continue to sow seeds of love and truth? Or would we then hide ourselves and try to blend in with everyone else? And for some of us, we might feel disappointed or we feel disillusioned because after many, many years of sowing, we don't seem to see any fruits of our labor. And that makes us feel like giving up. But in such times, we are invited to hold on to the hope and trust in God, that whatever we sow faithfully and in sincerity will eventually bear fruit in due time. And sometimes, while we are expecting to see the fruits externally, perhaps in somebody else's life or in a particular situation. We may then fail to see that perhaps the fruits are blossoming in our own lives when we find ourselves growing in patience, in compassion, in endurance, in character, in faith, etc. And so, we are invited to continue sowing the seeds. But when and where the sprout would grow, we don't know. That would be in God's perfect time, in His way and with His grace. What we are called to do is to only do our part and to give our best. And at the end of the day, what awaits us is God's affirmation. Well done, you good and trustworthy servant. You have been faithful in the small things, and I will trust you with greater. Come and join in your master's happiness. What God truly desires to share with us is His joy and His happiness through a life lived in self-giving love. When we work for His kingdom, to reveal His love so that more can come to know Him. But many times, what actually stops us from taking risks to love is our fear. These fears could come from different things. It could come from our misunderstanding about who God is, our fear of failure and rejection, or our pride, because we believe that what we have are our possessions and therefore we can do what we deem fit with them. And the servant who chose to hide the talent did so out of fear that his master will scold him, if he were to have lost the talent. So he chose to hide it. He saw his master as an exacting and calculative man. And as I deepen on the passage, it struck me that the reason why the master was so angry was because this third servant did not even try. Likely from the beginning, the master already knew that this servant was the conservative kind. So he was only allotted one talent for a start, so as not to overwhelm him. Yeah, and in today's context, for those of us who have met insurance agents or financial consultants, we will have experienced before that they will ask us a series of questions before building our risk profile, whether we are the conservative, moderate risk, or high risk kind. Yeah, then based on that, they will recommend suitable products to us accordingly. And so while the master knew that this servant possibly belongs to the conservative category, he knew that there was something that he could still do with what he was given. And so like in today's context, is to put the money in a fixed deposit, because very safe, always get back your principal sum. Yeah. So the master was angry because he knew that there's something that the servant could still try because no effort is too small. And as a loving father, God truly values our heart and our efforts, not so much the outcome. And in loving us, what God desires most is our growth and for us to grow in relationship and intimacy with Him and others around us. And so, at the end of the day, even if the servant would have lost that one talent, perhaps what he would have gained through it if he tried would have been experience, how to make better choices, perhaps deeper relationships if he sought help from other people, and also a deeper encounter and understanding of the heart of his master, who would likely empathize with him, offer him encouraging words or advice, and perhaps maybe even another talent so that he could try again. These would be the fruits that he could have reaped even through a seemingly failed experience. Because when we give what we have, there's no wasted experience with God. And we can be assured that in all things, God will always work for the good of those who love Him, as St. Paul says in Romans chapter 8, verse 28. And so in life, we are bound to make mistakes. We are bound to experience failures in our endeavors, in our journey of following Jesus, in our different pursuits in life. But if we live constantly in fear that we'll be evaluated, there's no second chances, it'll be very, very difficult and challenging for us to dare to take that step out into the unknown. And in child psychology, we know that little children who are securely attached to their parents, meaning that they know that they can trust their parents to be there for them and to meet their needs, these are the children who will be willing to step out, to explore a new environment that they are in. Yes, they will look back to their parents for cues, but with that assuring look of approval to go ahead and explore, they go without fear, because they know that even with their backs turned, they are never alone. Someone is watching out for them, and help will be there if they need it. And so our images and our perceptions of who God is determines whether we live in fear or we live in freedom and confidence to love. So the question is that, do we trust God's heart for us? How do we see him? Do we see him as a loving and nurturing father, or a harsh judge with unfair and unrealistic expectations of us? And so, perhaps during our time of prayer later, we can ask Jesus to help us, to show us if we are holding on to any false images of the Father, and ask Jesus to reveal to us again the true heart of the Father. A heart that's always for us, always ready to forgive, to trust, and to pick us up again when we fall, so that we can rise up again on our feet, to carry on our mission to love again and again. And so, as we take some time to read the passage slowly during the silent time of prayer, let us not be in a hurry. We can stay with a word or a phrase that speaks to us, and we ask Jesus, what is your message for me today? How can I be more faithful in stewarding the many talents and gifts that you have blessed me with? Or maybe, in this season of your life, you are just finding it very difficult to take that step out to invest your talents. Or you might be wondering if you have anything to offer in the first place. And that's fine as well. Just come as you are and have a dialogue with Jesus. Share with him your concerns and your considerations and allow him to speak to you. Allow his gentle voice of love to speak louder than any fears and worries you have, and let him take you by your hand. And so we will be entering into a time of prayer for the next 20 minutes. I will flash the passages for tonight on the screen. And for those of us who are more comfortable, we can turn off the video and then we will just gather back at 8:50